So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I just realized I have my so welcome everyone. You know, I'm going to introduce myself in a moment. I just came back from my first business trip in 3 months, and I drove and I didn't fly, and I went to see a client because they are looking to reset and rebalance and rebuild. And they also know there's still a lot of white water ahead. So the question becomes, how do we navigate through the white water that's still yet to come with the economy and all of that fun stuff that's and COVID? One of the things that we know for sure is that we are in the middle of a tsunami. And Stephen, you raised your hand. So I'll let Cindy and Andrea work with that, and we'll come back to you. That we're at a turning point. You know, these times are unprecedented. They're exceptional. They're unparalleled. And these are all of the words that you see: unusual, turbulent, and these times aren't over. And what I've noticed is that, in terms of my own opinion, that this is truly a turning point in business itself. With COVID, civil unrest, economic uncertainty, we're going to be in a never-ending tsunami for quite some time. And according to economists, it may be a couple of years before we recover. So it's really important that we learn how to continually reset and rebalance ourselves. I keep hearing the phrase that we're only in the second inning of the game. And if the economists are right and we don't have a vaccine for a long time, then we better learn how to, as people, develop this resilience so that we can not only rebalance ourselves, but rebalance, help other people rebalance. So Cindy, we have Cindy and Andrea. They can wave hi. They are with Lindsay's Conscious Business. They're helping us. So if you have questions, go ahead and put questions in the chat box. And here's our first poll. How many of you are ready to hit the reset button and get back to normal? And notice we put normal in quotes. And then secondly, in your mind, do you have a clear path that you plan to take to get back to normal? You know, I'm able to see some of the votes. And I have to say that I can answer all three of them. I wish I could pick them all. On any given day, I can say yes, no, maybe, maybe I'm ready. Some days I feel equipped to reset and rebalance, and other days it's just one foot in front of the other, and other days I have clarity. So we've got 66% of you voting, 14 out of 21. So about half of you are ready to get back to normal. And Cindy, let's go ahead and show the results. So about half of you are ready to get back to normal, however it is that you define normal. We have somebody that doesn't feel ready, and the other half maybe. And most of us don't have a clear path. So that's what I'm hoping to be able to share with you today, is at least some of the ideas about how to create a path for yourself when we know we're going to be in turbulence. And I like the answer maybe as well, because maybe today you have a path and tomorrow something else happens and then you have to reset again. So I hope that what we go through today will help you with that. So perfect. We can stop sharing the poll. And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Susan Robertson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lindsay's Conscious Business. And thank you so much for joining us today. As I said, we've got our two business partners, Cindy Medaglia, Head of Operations and Client Services, and Andrea Haas, our President and Head of Sales. And for me, personally, I've dedicated my life to helping others. For the last 32 years, I've worked with executives and leaders, coaching their teams, helping them become better leaders, build stronger cultures, and to make a difference, which makes a bottom line impact. And so now we're going to take a look at, as I shared before, I think we're in the middle of a tsunami and we just don't know how long it's going to last. And it's really about how you manage through it. So here's the second poll. You know, do you believe we'll get back to normal in 3 to 4 months, 4 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months? And then the operative question is, do you believe that whatever the next normal is will be different than before? Yes or no? Now, when I think about where I was in February and where I am today, I feel like I'm in a completely different world, and that was 100 years ago. Not to depress anybody, but you know, many organizations right now are going through Chapter 11. The retail industry was already struggling. 16 retailers and restaurant chains filed for Chapter 11 since the pandemic hit. That was according to the Business Insider on June 1. In May, 19 major companies in the oil and gas industry filed for Chapter 11. That's according to Kalish Energy News on June 5. By now, we've all heard about Avis and Hertz filing for Chapter 11. So a lot of organizations are reorganizing. According to the Washington Post, on May 12, 2020, more than 100,000 small businesses have closed forever. Again, not to make you depressed, but it shows you that we're going to be in an economic tsunami for a while. And the point is, what can we do to continually rebalance ourselves when things are continuing to change in massive ways? And how do you find stability within this time of uncertainty? So Cindy, if you can go ahead and show the results. So some of you feel that things will get back to normal in about 3 to 4 months. Others of you, 4 to 6 months, and most of you are thinking that it's going to be a bit more long-term. And certainly that's what we've been seeing, like when you read the Gallup polls and all of these other polls, is people are thinking this is going to take a while. So one of the first steps that you have to do when you're resetting is just understand your longevity or your time horizon. If you really think it's 6 or 12 months, then you create your plans around something like that. And do you believe that the normal will be much different than before? 94%. And that's why I keep saying next normal rather than new normal, because I think that this, and I think most people that we've been talking to believe the same thing, that this is going to continually evolve rather than having sort of a set point in time, that our new normal probably won't be around for another 12 to 18 months of what we could say is a stable normal. So thank you, Cindy. If we can go ahead and put that one, put the survey aside. As I shared before, we are at a turning point in terms of how we're even defining business. The purpose of business is changing. And I think COVID has been a great example of how business is changing. The Business Roundtable is an organization of 180 American businesses who recognize that U.S. corporations play a vital role in our society. In August last year, in 2019, the CEOs created a new definition of corporate responsibility. If any of you have gone to business school or regular college, we learned growing up, I certainly learned this, that the primary purpose of business is to improve shareholder value. And we've lived with that definition for well more than 50 years. And the Business Roundtable now states, and these include CEOs from JP Morgan Chase and many of these big companies, that say shareholders aren't the only responsibility of businesses. It's about other stakeholders, shareholders, customers, employees, your contractors, and your community. And I think COVID really brought out the need of businesses to help with employees and contractors in the communities, as well as servicing the client. And so I think that this is a wonderful, I guess, transition that we're going through as we move into this new era of business. And so for us at Lindsay's Conscious Business, Lindsay's actually means keen insights. We believe in business, this kind of thing, that conscious business is about these 5 constituencies: shareholder, customer, employees, contractors, and the community. And that by becoming a real leader, you can create a real culture and generate real results. So to rebalance and rebuild, and since I keep saying we're in the middle of a tsunami, one of the things we need to understand is people are hurting. Our community is hurting. And we need to rebuild and rebalance that. And there is no going back to normal. There's only the next normal. People are confused. They're looking for hope. They're looking for healing. And they're looking for guidance and leadership. And this is what each of you can bring. Whether you're an actual leader of people or not, you're still a leader in your life. And we are looking at people to be able to, leaders to be able to envision the future and inspire action and align. My hope is by the end of this little webinar is that you'll at least be able to help people envision the future. And when people can at least understand the future, even if it's a little unstable, they become inspired to act. And then it's much easier to align. And that's how you improve productivity. So here is our final poll. Do you feel equipped to lead and rebalance and rebuild? So Cindy, if you could go ahead. Okay, so far about 50-50 feeling the ability. Great. So Cindy, if you want to go ahead and show the results. Yeah, so some of us feel equipped to lead and rebalance and rebuild. Some of us know, and some of us maybe. So today, my promise to you, and we can go ahead and put away that poll and the results. Today, my promise to you is that I'm going to show you, give you a couple of tips on how to hit the reset and rebalance. I'm going to show you the 5 R's roadmap that we use for ourselves, even at Lindsay's, and provide some practical steps that you can use to rebalance. So this is our 5 R's roadmap. There's 5 steps, or 5 stages, if you will, to rebalance, rejuvenate, reimagine, and revitalize and rebuild. And I'm going to go over these fairly quickly, and then I'm going to deep dive the very first step. So when you rebalance, one of the things you want to do is review what happened, accept and acknowledge, and then create connection. Don't underestimate how important this is to review what happened. Most people just want to move on. And you can't actually revitalize and reimagine until you acknowledge what happened. Rejuvenate is really all about stress reduction. Reimagining is once people are able to let go of the past, then they're able to generate new ideas and begin to envision a future. And when they do that, and you're able to lead that, you're able to help people do that together. At that point, then people become revitalized in terms of envisioning that future and becoming inspired on what they can do. Because when people get inspired about what they can do, they feel like they're in control. And then that's when you set the foundation to rebuild. So, sorry, this is the final one. I know I gave just a short definition of each one of these things. Based on your situation, what do you think your team needs the most? To rebalance, that's to review. To rejuvenate, that's to reduce stress. To reimagine, which is to generate what the future looks like. To become inspired for the future. And then, or do you need to put the action plans in place? Okay. So let's go ahead and show these results. So it seems like people are in different stages. Woody, you've got your hand raised. If you want to go ahead and type your question in, then I can take a look at that or make a comment. To be rejuvenated, this is the stress reduction. And just so you're aware, we do have a stress reduction, stress management series that you can access either on YouTube or our website. To reimagine, to create a new future, and I'm going to give you some tips that you can do this. And then what I find is that when you can reduce the stress and help people reimagine, that's what leads to being reinvigorated. And then you're able to put the steps in place. Okay, so we'll close out those polls and those results. So to rebalance, as I said before, Woody, did we get your question? Andrea, does he have a question? Is it in the Q&A box maybe? Okay. We need to review, acknowledge, and connect. So I'm going to actually go a little bit deeper into these 3 things. So review. How do you rebalance? You start with a review. Jean Houston is an author of many books, and she talks about understanding our current reality by looking at life from 2 different perspectives, what she calls the horizontal perspective and the vertical perspective, as well as then taking a look at your logical and emotional response and then the impact that it's having on your life. So in the review, what you want to do with yourself and with your employees, the horizontal perspective is the timeline. This is what happened to us. We all just got hit by a Mack truck. So it's what happened to us at what time. And then the logical perspective, what does that mean to us? What did I think about that? How did I feel about that? And when you go through and you start to write down the events from a horizontal perspective, the vertical perspective is the deep meaning that this has had on you in your life. For most of us, we may not realize it now, but this will be a time that's life defining, just like, maybe not exactly like 9/11, but those kinds of events that happen in our life that cause you to go, oh, wow, this was big. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is take a look at your horizontal story since March. Have your team look at the horizontal story since March, and then have them tell their vertical story. What did it mean to them? How did it impact them? What were their thoughts? What were their feelings in this case? So that is one of the most important things. And it's a very easy thing to do, to have people write this down and share it with each other. And we find that people will open up with each other when you start with horizontal and vertical perspective. The second thing that you can do in the review is with your team, once again, have everyone talk about the horizontal story, what happened to them. You can do this, I like to call it the 3-column. You can do it as a sticky exercise, but since most of us are still working from home, you can do this on a shared document where you put 3 lists together. And you list the big events in column 1. And then in column 2, you put, what are all the thoughts about what just happened? And then in the 3rd column, you put in the emotional response to what just happened. And as you see, what happens when you do that is that people understand the event, they understand how people are thinking, they understand the emotional response, and that leads to sharing, and that leads to connection. And when people have sharing and connection, and when people feel vulnerable with each other, that leads to a sense of security, which actually helps reduce stress. I hope I'm making sense because I'm going really fast. The second thing you need to do, so that was the review, is to acknowledge, accept, and admit. This is what, as a leader, one of the most important things you can do is acknowledge and admit our own emotions, our own pain, our own sorrows around this. Instead of fighting what happened, you accept it. That doesn't mean that you like it. That doesn't mean that you want it to continue. It is what it is. And you give credence to the emotions that you and your team are having. There's nothing wrong with admitting fear because it makes us human. And when people are feeling pain, sadness, grief, confusion, uncertainty, and some people, because of the way COVID has impacted the economy and our environment, are actually having a great time. I can give an example of, we call him the fish guy. He had a very basic business for 40 years in his family, and lo and behold, the chicken thing came along and his business has grown by 400%. You know, for him, it's been a great opportunity. So for him, life has been very different. So if you're able to admit, you know, if you do that 3-column exercise, then that means everybody's admitting. And then you're giving credence to, okay, we're here, we're all in this together. That allows for the release to occur. If we don't accept it, if we don't really pay attention to what's going on with people, it's going to be much harder to rejuvenate, which is the stress reduction, as I said before. And then that whole process that I was just talking about allows you to reconnect. Because people are being open and vulnerable with each other, you begin to rebuild trust. You begin to create faith, and you begin to create hope with people. But if we just move on to the next thing, if we don't pause and review and acknowledge and take that breath, if we don't lead our teams in being vulnerable, and I just gave you one simple exercise that you can do, then it's much harder to create that connection that restores faith and trust. So how do you do this? It's one of the easiest things that you do is take time. to connect. Oh my God, I have no time. No, we all say we're too busy. If you're too busy, that means you need to take double the amount of time that you thought you needed to take. You know, don't underestimate the importance of the review and acknowledging and just having a simple conversation. If we don't connect, nothing happens, nothing changes. We don't move. So as a leader, for yourself, do a review. For your team, you know, talk about the Mack truck that just hit everybody. Talk about the thoughts and feelings, acknowledge and accept that. So we can go a lot deeper into this, and that's just the first of rebalancing. To rejuvenate, if you're able to do the rebalance well, then people are ready to let go of their stress. And that just comes from listening. And when you listen, resilience is built. Because what happens when you do these two things together, people then naturally start into, okay, what can we do? And next month in the agility webinar that I'll be doing, we're going to talk about the difference between adapting versus being agile and creating your future. So you absolutely need to be flexible and adapt, but you also want to recreate the future. And when you do that in this stage of reimagining, then people automatically begin to revitalize and become inspired themselves. So you can see there's so much more to talk about that we can support you with. And so my promise to you is to just give you a few ideas to help you hit the reset rebalance. I've been going and we've been working, Andrea, Cindy, and I have been working with teams, and we have been working on the review primarily. And we've been working on the rejuvenation with the teams. And it's amazing to watch how much energy pops open when you do just those two steps. And we're noticing that with some of our teams, they start solving problems that they've had for years that we couldn't help them solve before, because they now have connected in such a way, because COVID was their teacher, they connected in such a way that they're now able to build stronger teams because they were vulnerable with each other, because they shared. So what I want to share with you is that gave you a couple of ideas on how to do that, shared with you the 5 hours roadmap. Obviously, we're not going to get through all of them. And what I want to share with you now is an opportunity of what you can do for your next step. This is a gift to you. We're not charging for it. But Cindy and Andrea would love to be able to talk with you around all the 5 R's and actually provide some tips on how to help you start. This is really to sit down and talk each one of these steps through, and then be able to say, here's what we think where you need to start based on where you are as a person or where your team is. And here are some ideas on what you can do to move into using all 5 R's. We also have some resources for you. Cindy will be sending you an email afterwards, and you'll get this 5 R's Rebalance Rebuild Toolkit. Be sure to use it with your team. It could be a way as a conversation starter to do that. Remember, if you need help with rejuvenation, we have a 3-part series on stress. It's on our YouTube channel as well as on our webinar. And every month we're going to be doing, we're calling them Lunch with Lindsay's. We're going to be doing these 30-minute programs. And we're going to try and be as timely as possible. So we'd love to hear from you as to what it is that you would like for us to talk about. And so we have 4 minutes left. If anyone has a question that you'd like to ask, again, if you want to have a one-on-one consult, just put consult, and Cindy and Andrea will be sure to contact you and have the ability to go through each one of those 5 R's. That would be the focus of that 1 hour to help you, get started. Or if you want more information on the things that I talked about on that 3-column method, then Andrea and Cindy will also be able to help you with that. So no questions? Clear as mud? You can put it in the chat or put it in the question box. We do have a question. So how is this different than, okay, so we have one of the questions that we have is that we have a teleseminar coming up on Monday, and we're actually going to be doing a teleseminar on resilience. So for those people who are attending the teleseminar, we're actually going in and asking you what it is you'd like to accomplish as a result of being at that teleseminar. This 1 hour conversation will really be to talk about these 5 R's and how it relates to you and what you can do with your teams. So again, if you, Cindy just put here, if you want to schedule a one-to-one consult, she'll also send a calendar link along with the link for this, for the 5 R's toolkit, as well as the replay of the webinar. So I hope I answered that question for you. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope you join us next month. We're going to be talking about agility, and the following month we're actually going to be talking about engagement. Each time we're hoping to offer you at least one small tool, like the 3 columns method that I just talked about, to help you with whatever it is that you're needing help with. So thank you, Kenny. Yes, Dina, we can send you some available times. And everyone that joined us today, we really appreciate you joining us and being with us, and we hope you find these valuable.